Ah, so you waited until I hit the live button to have issues, didn't you?
No, you're fine. I know what's going on. My computer likes to have its own volume, and Skype also likes to have its own volume. And they don't play well together, apparently, because ever since they said Skype was going away, now they've separated the volumes for some reason. Now you're louder in my ear, and I can actually hear you a little better.
That is fantastic news. Other than that, how are you doing?
I'm good. Hello, everyone. I think we're live.
Yeah, oh, yes, we are.
I'm just I'm good. I'm super. I'm super. Thanks for asking. Um, Immediately DMCA'd by Trey Parker and Matt Stone.
That would be
Um,
unfortunate.
it
For so many.
would be unfortunate, but also kind of awesome because they rule. Um, but I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I'm actually here.
That is a
I
shock.
bel I believe this is 4 weeks in a row, if I'm not
I
mistaken.
know you're really earning that bonus I don't pay you.
That's right. Give me a bonus. You can pay me in compliments and winks, and batting of the eyes.
Um,
That's pretty much all I'm going to get, I feel.
um, you're looking exceptionally shaven today.
Compliment accepted, bonus received.
So, um,
How about you? How are you, sir?
I'm great. I'm just another day. It's pretty much the same as it's been, but like, you know, such is life. Turned 40, legs, shoulders, back, all starts to fall apart. It's fun. It's really
Yeah,
fun.
that song from when we were a kid, that head, shoulders, knees, and toes, it's actually everything that fails when you turn 40.
Pretty much. It's they should have added it. Enjoy it while they work.
Hmm. Accurate.
Sean, you want to make a boom tube for your Volvo? The only acceptable way that works is that if the entire boom tube is made out of old license plates. You know how this goes.
Yes, absolutely, yes. In fact, make an entire exhaust out of old license plates.
That seems like it might leak.
No, no, it's vent atmosphere. It's fine.
Technically, all exhausts vent to atmosphere. Um,
It's true. Just more so than others.
some follow a more, we'll just say, controlled path.
Yes. The one that was properly engineered for, as opposed to, you know, license plate holes.
Because the rasp would be awful. You don't think a boom tube on a Volvo is not going to have rasp in the first place?
Yeah, let's be honest. That's just as bad.
I mean, now is this? I have to ask: is this with the 5.3 that you have, the LS variant, or is it um, for the red block, which is also intriguing?
Yeah, either one of
Oh,
those
he answered
works.
to getting the LS. Oh, I mean,
There you go.
at that, I mean, is it? Well, I guess it's West Virginia, so like as long as there's an exhaust, you're fine. But I was gonna say, because like here, you're not even allowed to have cutouts, let alone just the side exit exhaust.
That's true.
Oh, great! So the odds begin.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm already boring you.
Oh,
Um,
Jesus Christ! I talk to you all day. Why do I do
I
this?
know. I know. So,
But at any rate, hopefully
in,
something that'll get my heart rate up is that welcome back to Chad's War Against Pedestrians. Um, if
oh yeah, you were telling me about this. You were saving a very large rant for this, so I'm very excited to hear what happened.
so, to those of you who know, let's see here. Let me just. To those of you who know, I have a slightly, I guess, different approach. Not just pedestrians, but basically to give you the short version of it. So, um, basically, we've raised a generation of pedestrians who don't pay attention, and the fact that I, the motorist, now you should be always aware. You should understand a crosswalk, slow down. You should all do the things that are smart, right, and safe. However, when you're driving a car and you're not near a crosswalk or whatever, your visibility is less than someone who can do this.
Yeah.
So really the impetus should be on them to make sure they're crossing safely, etc. At any rate, and if you've been in a parking lot and someone is just like, I'm just going to walk across the part where people drive, you have to worry about me, like oblivious to the world, you understand what I'm saying. So today, I'm driving. And this is like, the story I'm about to tell, this is not like over the course of driving the entire day. This is over the course of like 10 minutes. So I'm pulling out of a parking lot and it's into a regular street. And the street has like, for the first chunk of it, has has like those dividers, those islands and little gaps where you pull out. So I pull out and then all of a sudden there's a car turns off the main road in here. So it's like you turn out, I'm making the left, this person turns in, it's whatever. So I pull out and I see them coming. So I stop to give them room to come around me. She just pulls right into my lane and then stops. And I'm like, the fuck you want me to do? No, wait, hold on. And we're demonetized. That was before the 30-minute mark.
Sweet. That's okay. We make a quarter on each of these streams anyway.
You're supposed to have the bleep button, Greg. So FCA, if you're watching, it's his fault.
I have no such bleep buttons. I am in control of nothing other than being here.
So I'm like, gosh darn it. And now I'm like a little bit fired up. So I drive, turn onto another road. I'm going to Rite Aid to pick up some prescriptions, etc. And I stop. I'm about to make the left. There's a pedestrian walking. Now I'm letting the other cars drive by, so he's getting closer and closer. Eventually, there's now a gap, and there's someone trying to come out of the Rite Aid parking lot. And the pedestrian is just like, so damn slow that two additional cars that I wasn't intending on having to wait for now drive by. I'm like, look, I get it. I'm turning. Technically, it's their lane or what have you. But the whole not having a concept that other vehicles are here, or that vehicles might want to turn, or other people are there, or that the fact that it takes effort to walk that slow. Like, if I tried to walk that slow, it would actually be a halfway decent leg workout because it would look like. So, and I'm like,
you'd be squatting as you walk.
So, and then he's just looking at me, and I'm like about to get on my horn and like, tell the guy how
excited you are for him to get out of the way.
It's like, I'm so glad you're in my life right now. It just, that sort of attitude, the fact that you can wait, I can do this. Number one is inconsiderate. Number two, you're a freaking moron. Because if I wasn't paying attention, if I was like some of these other drivers I'm going to talk about, you're a smear. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be like what have you, but like, you are a smear. At that point, it really doesn't matter who's at fault. I mean, sure, for the, loved ones who you're survived by might care. But as for you,
right.
It's, sorry, back to the lobby with you. And so now I'm like, and when I go into this Rite Aid, there's almost always someone at the front desk or the front register like, no, but I have this coupon. I have this. What do you mean I can't do this? What do you, and like the poor bastard behind the desk is like, and it's always something like, but this coupon expired in February. Oh, but you've honored. I've gone to Rite Aids and they've honored them before. I'm like, and the person's like trying to process how this person is saying something so utterly stupid, or like trying to get one over on them, that it's like you can almost smell like burnt clutch as they try to figure out like, how do I make this person go away? Like,
Correct.
So,
Jesus.
I
Moral of the story is I hate people.
right.
They're dumb.
To paraphrase one of the late great infomercial people, but wait, there's more.
Oh God.
So now I'm trying to leave Rite Aid, and there's this young driver driving an Elantra hybrid. The only reason I can be that specific is because I watched them. So they could have easily pulled past me, pulled into a parking spot, backed up, turned around that way. That was the easiest way to turn around. Not at like the entrance. And not at the entrance by the exit of the drive-through. So what this person does, instead of making what would be for me a right-hand turn and going into the parking lot, pulling the UE and doing that stuff, they go left into the drive-through, and Austin powers themselves in such a way that I can't get by without like being in the other lane. And I'm just watching it go eat, 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 eat. And like I'm like, this is strike three. Someone might be forcibly told to remove their brain bucket from an orifice slightly lower in the body. I'm just, my God.
Dude, that's insane.
So finally, this guy finishes his 10.7 trillion turn U-turn, and I get out and I'm driving maybe a mile down the road. There's someone stopped in the road, no traffic coming the other way, nothing in front of them. I'm like, are they turning? What are these people doing? And then I see, like, and then I'm like looking around, and I see it poke out. They were letting one goose walk across the street. And even when it got to a certain point, they didn't pull around it and go around. They sat there, stationary, until it was completely clear, across the shoulder, into the grass, and on the other side of the freaking fence.
I mean, you don't...
And I was driving the Equinox, so I was like,
Cobra...
I don't really care if there's a scratch to this car.
Yeah. Look, stopping for wildlife, very noble. Stopping for cobra chickens, no. I hate those things. They're awful.
But I mean, have you ever...
But like when it goes across the street, you go. You just leave. Like you don't watch it.
I don't think it's like an official statistic, because how would you actually know? But like, I forget what it was, but like the estimated death toll for people avoiding running over like squirrels and chipmunks is
a lot.
Insane. No, I'm not saying if you have the opportunity, if like you have the ability to stop, you don't want to damage your car, and fucking Canadian cobras are fucking dense as hell. So like they could do some pretty serious damage if you were to slam into them.
They'll take out a bumper corner.
You know. So I'm just, but like once it's past, just drive. I'm like,
yes,
I'm not in the mood.
You want to go look at wildlife? Go to a zoo.
You're about to have my Red Bull, my unopened Red Bull, hurled in your general direction.
Correct.
That's just like, gosh. Sean goes, a goose will fight anything, true, and it's a crime to mess with them, I believe.
Not if they're attacking you.
Well, yes, and then in the state of New Jersey, if you get the proper license, you can hunt them, and if they're banded, you get money.
Yep.
Like,
thinning the herd.
You know, we talked about tariffs last week. Take all of the geese back, and I think we can lift the tariffs. It's in your court, Canada.
Oh, by the way, when you said an Elantra, what was it? It said an Elantra hybrid station wagon or something, or an Elantra hybrid. I thought you said a launcher hybrid, and I'm like, wait, we need to not just like glance past that. What in the hell is a launcher hybrid? And what car was this person driving?
It's more efficient than a Javelin.
Yes. And very, very, apropos, it was what you were thinking of doing to that person, a launchering them
Oh my
into
gosh!
orbit.
I mean, I would have taken my chances with an AT4. Side note: Have you ever? Do you know how much a single Javelin rocket costs every time they launch it?
Oh, probably tens of millions of dollars, if not hundreds of millions of dollars.
It's so like we all know like the RPG and stuff. We've all played COD. We've all this right. Like you just think,
Yeah.
oh, that's cool.
Oh,
So like the actual
Javelin
rocket,
rocket.
not the
I don't
system
know
itself.
why. Yeah, I don't know what. Yeah, I don't know why you said Javelin rocket. My mind immediately went to like SpaceX rocket.
No,
You're talking about like the artillery or the
pretty
weaponry.
much like
Got it.
shoulder fire. Delete that terrain feature over there.
Yes. So just the rocket
Yeah,
itself. I'm going to go ahead and guess $78,000.
you're off by almost $100,000.
Jesus Christ. 150 grand?
About 170.
Jeez, that. It's like, all right, do you want one rocket launcher or a McLaren? That's
Not the
insane.
launcher. Just
No, I
the
know.
rocket.
Just the rocket. Yeah. Good God.
That also reminds me of a story. I was listening to a podcast, and like one of the guys was former infantry in the army, and like they were talking about the guys who had to carry around like the AT4, which is the much more cost effective and significantly less accurate, famously less accurate AT4. And he was saying like over in Iraq and Afghanistan, they'd be like, you don't, because of how inaccurate they are, you do not initiate an ambush with the AT4. And he goes, so we initiated every ambush with the AT4 because we didn't want to carry all the rockets back.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and then Nicholas, the Hellfire stuff's cool. My favorite Hellfire, and I forget the name of it, is the one that has no explosives in it, but it has 24-inch blades, and it is an extremely personalized rocket propelled FU.
That's the one where he said we made the Hellfire missile with swords.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Like,
Um,
so yeah, that was the day. That was the rant. That was the. I honestly think it's too easy to get a license in this country, and if there was a pedestrian, pedestrian. I think a pedestrian or two needs to get we'll just say lightly nudged by a car, and not a good person, not like a good parent, not like someone who's like Greg, let's say, let's just say someone who's like just a shitbag of a human, but it makes it into the news, so people are like, oh, I should actually pay attention.
yeah. Well, sorry you had to deal with that, but
It makes for content.
yeah, exactly. This too has passed.
Mm-hmm.
But I think maybe we touch on a couple of fun automotive topics that are not pedestrians being colossal, idiots.
Oh, sorry.
Wait, what did you say?
I definitely didn't say cold.
Yeah, the pedestrian elimination system.
The great pedestrian culling of 2025.
That was definitely not on my 2025 bingo card, but here we are. No, I think a good place to start is sports cars because everyone likes talking about those. And Toyota, as we talk about a lot on here, they, in their infinite wisdom, and by they I mean literally the head of the company, gave a soundbite of sports cars must have a gas engine. And I want to hear your thoughts on this first before I chime in. But basically, I'll give a quick synopsis of what Akira Toyoda, who is literally the the Grandmaster Flash of oh sorry, it's Akio, not Akiro. Akio Toyota basically open to the idea of an EV sports car, but it prefers the smell of gasoline and a noisy engine. Um, and I think that's probably going to be what we all agree to. But um, his quote was, "For me, as the master driver, my definition of a sports car is something with the smell of gasoline and a noisy engine," he admits. Um, let's see, where's the other quote? Toyota admits it's not too exciting to race EVs because the battery doesn't last on a circuit for more than an hour. In other words, the company's chairman argues that the current technology isn't up to snuff, adding it would be a race of charging time or battery charge. He prefers to enter endurance races anyway, so EVs are not feasible yet. But, it's basically him saying, EVs are a possibility, but as of right now, we don't have the technology to make them a viable sports car or racing car at this point. Now, with all of that said,
Aren't they in Formula E?
Chad, opinions on this?
It's easy to say that when another company builds your sports car engine.
I mean,
We will
you're
always
not wrong. You're not wrong.
I mean, like, and for that matter, it basically builds your sports car as well.
Yeah.
Look, is at the heart of what he's saying. I mean, as an enthusiast, absolutely. I mean, if you look at motorsport in general, you look at like Formula E, right? The all-electric, probably the most famous all-electric racing series on the planet at the moment. Those cars are cool. They're not particularly fast. They've finally gotten away with having cars last an entire race distance without having to swap cars in the middle of it.
Yep. Big cost-cutting measure, that, by the way. Just eliminate an entire other car.
It's like, how do we solve people with range anxiety with EVs? Well, here's what you do. When you go on that long road trip, about halfway, or at
You're going to get a new one.
At the limit of your car's range, you have another car waiting for you. You just swap cars. Although,
just
weirdly
unpack all of your stuff, put it into this other car.
Yeah. And depending on how long the trip, you have to do that 2 to 3 times.
Yeah. Hey, scroll up so we don't get a weird thing on that video that's playing from Motor One. Or pause it. Hey! Get that out of my face. Oh, now you've clicked on the ad.
Just to continue that thought.
Yeah.
And in sports car racing, endurance racing, like Mr. Toyota himself said, the top tier cars are hybrids, all but one. The Aston is no hybridization whatsoever, and God bless them, we're all better off for it. Depending on the rule set that the car is built to, depends on the amount of hybridization. Which, again, is good, because you get a hybrid V8 Cadillac that still sounds epic. And arguably, the hybridization makes the noise even more of an event, because we've all seen the video of the Cadillac leaving the pits, where it's like, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And then a bass boost blasts you out of your seat.
It's
awesome sounding.
Phenomenal. Right?
Oh, yeah.
And then we have what arguably is the biggest concern for Formula One going into next season is the new engine regs and the fact that the cars are likely to run out of electric juice on some of the longer straights at some of the tracks, which is going to be a big oopsie if they don't get it right.
Yeah.
So I agree with this sentiment. I agree. Like, number one, the whole sports cars are not about sure, there are hypercars and supercars that chase every last tenth of a second around a track or in a straight line or whatever. But a sports car is meant to be fun. And fun is not simply the speed of it all. it's everything involved. It's the G-forces you feel. It's the noises the car makes. It's why we love manuals, because you're an active part of the driving experience. All of that sort of stuff is pretty paramount to the overall experience. And obviously, the biggest thing is the engine. We started the show off by talking about Sean's exhaust, but like, and not for nothing, with all of the EV pullback, especially in this country. Yeah, it's pretty easy to say that because, frankly, even if their next sports car wasn't on the same level as the current Supra, but it used some variation of their turbocharged 3-cylinder, or that new 4-cylinder they have coming out that's going to make a quadrillion billion horsepower, or what have you. Like, that stuff is still more exciting than any EV will ever be from a simple just driving it thing. Sure, excitement of going fast around the track, faster than anything else, that is one level of excitement. That is excitement, though, that 0.001% of car buyers ever really experience. So,
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, you kind of hit on a couple of points of mostly in the racing category, but also just in the sports car category. And I'm glad you had that take because I sort of have a slightly opposite take. I agree with
and
the
muting,
sentiment that what's that?
muting. I'm muting you.
Well, no. I'm gonna play slight devil's advocate here, and it has to mostly do with the headline that Motor One shows here. Um, I agree with everything that Toyota said. I think a proper sports car needs an internal combustion engine. It needs drama. It needs an oral experience, not oral as in your mouth, AURAL, with your ears. It needs noise. And certain EVs have really cool noises because they sound like jet fighters, right? We've heard them like, really the high strung EVs that have like tons of horsepower. They sound like there's like a crazy, it almost sounds like straight cut gears, if you will, right? Like we've heard that before. But it still isn't a substitute for an internal combustion engine, and it never will be unless like EVs really change drastically over the next 50 years, which I don't think that they're going to. We've pretty much plateaued on that in that sense. Uh, what I'm going to disagree with is that Toyota's chairman did not say that sports cars must have a gas engine. He said that he prefers them to have a gas engine and that they should. That's fine. I also don't think that they must have a gas engine because you can make a sports car out of a lot of stuff. Um, um, would you consider the Lotus Evija, the one that's coming out, the 2,000 horsepower EV?
No,
Would you consider that a sports car?
no, that's a hypercar. When you're
Okay, but
starting to here's the delineation, right? When you start to no compromise speed at all costs, right?
mhm.
So you're going down the path of I'm going to make the fastest accelerating thing. I'm going to make the fastest straight line thing or the fastest car around a track. Like when you start to go down that path, you lose the sports. You're now into a less about
It's a different
experience.
class.
Right, it's a different class, but it's now less
Okay.
about experience and more about overall just perform, like the as Top Gear would say, top trumps. As slightly less cultured individuals such as myself would be, now you're starting to get into all the specs and details and the cock extensions
Hmm.
that so many of these buyers get their cars for. Um, it's not it's in my definition, a sports car is a car that you can have fun with. Um, that is traditionally two doors, can be a four door in certain cases, but the defining characteristic of the car is that it's kind of a sized and in a price range that's similar to everyday cars, but sacrifices practicality for the experience, for fun. So like a Mustang, right? It's it has a back seat. Greg will fit back there. Not many other full size adults will.
Right. You got to be
You
sure.
know, the trunk entrance is compromised because of the way the suspension is designed. So you have, you know, and you have things like the 911. Now, obviously, there's a massive price gap there, but like the 911, right? It's not trying to be the fastest thing on wheels. Sure, the GT2 RS is, but the regular 911s, which most people consider to be a quintessential, and that's a, I think even furthers my example, right? Regular 911 sports car. When you start thinking about lap times and racing and speed, now you end up with a GT2 or a GT3 RS. Still want a GT3 RS, love them, awesome car. But a sports car is supposed to be, in my opinion, that slightly better handling, a little bit more compromised version of a Grand Tourer. And
Right.
I think most Grand Tourers can be sports cars, but not all sports cars can be quote Grand Tourers, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
Yeah,
So
no, that makes sense.
so it's like a kind. So to wrap it up, it's that one vehicle that kind of does everything for you, almost, right? So
Hmm.
you can go on a trip with it, you can have fun on a back road with it, you can take it to the track if you want to, and you can daily it, right? A 2,000
Right.
horsepower hypercar, you could daily it. You'd be a legend for dailying it, but you're probably not going to daily it.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you do daily it, you're probably gonna get tired of it after a while. It makes it a little less special, and it also is probably not gonna be you're gonna be compromised in a lot of areas when you're doing your daily commute. That would be my guess. Especially because 2,000 horsepower hypercars are usually extremely low to the ground. Um,
And you're
a
never,
lot of places in the country don't have good clearance for that.
yeah,
Uh, you can't use the power all of the time or almost any of the time. So what's
ever,
the point?
ever. You're
Like
never
literally
going to
ever.
use any of that power on the street.
Right.
You're
So like
barely going to use it on a track because, again, to
right.
you, if you have the money to buy that vehicle, you have the money to go and rent a track. You have the money to do that whenever the hell you want. However,
Hmm.
what money can get you close, but it can't buy talent. So if you can't handle the
Well,
car
true.
going that fast, you're either going to make a very expensive mistake, or you're going to stay within yourself and never. You'd have been better off getting a car with half the power or a quarter of the power, even. You know,
Yeah. Yeah, what do we always say? For maximum enjoyment of a car, 400 to 500 horsepower.
in the right
And
chassis.
in all scenarios.
Well,
Like
I,
for street and track
yeah,
driving, for most people with average people talent, 400 to 500 horsepower is literally all you will ever need ever.
yeah.
But anyway, the whole reason I brought up that article first is because um, one, it was interesting to see the head. Sorry, I'm trying to look up the other article that I'm going to transition into. It was interesting to see the head of arguably the largest automaker in the world. The only other ones maybe being, or maybe the only one close at this point is Volkswagen Auto Group. Basically saying like we need gas engines in sports cars, period. And I'm like, that's one, very interesting. Two, I do agree with them. To I'd say like 99% of the way. Personally, I do think you can get a sports car with an EV, but I think we're a ways off to make it like actually viable and enjoyable. Weight also being an issue there with massive batteries, which is a topic for another conversation. But um, the way that it was set up from Motor One was just like kind of a lazy way to do it. Like he said, we must have this. I was like, he really didn't. He kind of twisted his words. Either way, I thought it was cool to see a Kia Toyota be like, yeah, we need gas engines in sports cars,
I mean,
and
it
I
shows
agree
that
with
he
that.
gets
I
it.
want noise.
It shows that he gets it. It shows that,
Correct.
he understands that this is what an enthusiast wants. And I'll be 100% honest with you. The people who buy sports cars are enthusiasts.
Yep, that's correct. But here's the fun part, because the head of your company is saying this. The other part of your company is also partnering with Waymo, which is the autonomous uh, driving side of things, which I find hilarious because you're saying two different things if that's the case. You're partnering with Waymo, which is for self-driving and autonomous driving, but also that sports cars need gas engines, which seem to be diametrically opposed viewpoints. Because if you want autonomous vehicles, you want something that's going to take away the ability to drive said sports cars. Which to me is just the height of hypocrisy. So Toyota says that. And then the next article I read down, literally, this was the next one I read on my feed, was Waymo partners with Toyota, opening door to sell autonomous vehicles to customers. So Waymo, I believe, is owned by Google, which is Alphabet Inc., is like the parent company. Sort of like Meta is the Facebook, if you will. But basically, the Toyota is now partnering with them for autonomous driving technology. This is dumb. Stop trying to get cars to drive themselves with people in them. Full stop. It's not going to happen. It is not safe. It won't be for many, 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 many decades. And we've already seen what self-driving cars do. They tend to crash into things when people inside aren't paying attention. The technology is not ready. There is no such thing as a self-driving car currently. There are cars that can poodle around and bring you from place to place, but they aren't fully self-driving, and they aren't fully autonomous. Until that can happen on a global scale, it doesn't exist. And cars that can shuttle you around as a taxi in San Francisco do not count as we have self-driving cars. That's not real. That is a beta test in the public. That's what that is. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts. One, on on one side, Toyota's saying this thing, and then they're partnering with Waymo, and two, what your whole thing on the self-driving, what your whole opinion on the self-driving cars part of this is.
I mean, the first part I disagree with you with, and that's simply because,
Interesting.
on the one hand, Toyota makes sporty cars, the GR line, GR86, the Yaris across the pond, the Corolla here, and I guess they sort of make the Supra. But the Supra's an awesome car. Just putting that out there because I've shat on it twice. It's more for the lulz than anything else.
It's for the memes. We did it for the memes.
I did it for the rock. But like you say, it's hypocritical for the head of Toyota to say sports cars should always have an internal combustion engine. And then Toyota partners with these self-driving people, which for the most part, a lot of the times, self-driving stuff just happens to be electric. I'm sure it's a lot simpler when you consider all the things that are factored into making that actually work. But on the same token, Toyota makes sporty cars while also making a Prius, a CRV,
Sure.
an HRV. They are not just a sports car company.
Those are Hondas.
A RAV4, a Civic Hybrid, right? Like,
yes, commuter cars. I know.
That's also a Honda. My brain is absolute goo. Fuck pedestrians. So, just to backtrack. Toyota can make sporty cars. They can also make family cars that have absolutely no sporting credentials whatsoever. Good God almighty. So, it's okay for this company, which, as you said on the onset, is the largest auto manufacturer on the planet. So that you don't get to be of that size by simply making one type of car. Shit, Porsche doesn't even make just sports cars anymore.
Right. But here's the
So if
thing,
it's
though.
a portfolio widener in my respect, do I? And because look, the self-driving tech, to your point, isn't there, but it's the closest we've ever been. So if you have engineers, if you're someone like the Toyota family who have that sort of automotive engineering and sort of that engineering spirit, something like this, which is kind of cutting edge, right? Like there's really there's really not many boundaries technologically wise with cars that you're really pushing that are all that new, right? Electric cars have been around for a while, so now we're just trying to evolve the battery systems.
Yeah.
Internal combustion has been around obviously a lot longer, and you're really not pushing the technological boundaries there, right? Like we haven't seen pre-ignition in road cars. Well, regular road cars yet, right? Like you see in Formula One. So like I get it. I don't think you're gonna see. I mean, I think Toyota also has like the best head on their shoulders of any of the major car companies when specifically when we start talking about their upper management, because they've been saying forever we're never gonna go fully EV unless like at least in the short to midterm, you know
Yeah.
we're never gonna do that. Like they've always had that a level headedness to them, and yet they make some really really good hybrids. They do stuff with fuel cell. They do stuff with a lot of different things, not just sports cars. So if they want to dabble with the self-driving tech, and let's face it, if anyone's really going to make some advancements, because it's all well and good for like Google, who you would think, hey, they're really good with this whole software shit and computer stuff, like, but applying that to a car, just ask Apple, it doesn't always go the way you think. Having Toyota, who's been around for ages, might further the tech. The biggest, and then I'll end it to your thing about self-driving cars. Um, to me, I think the technology will get there. However, I think there are so many legal hurdles that need to be addressed before we start giving the public an option to drive something that is quote fully autonomous, right? Like let's look at, God forbid there's an accident, right now if there's an accident, who's at fault, right? There's pretty cut forward straight guidelines, right? But
Yep.
an autonomous car, you're not the one actually doing the driving, so who's at fault? Is it the person who did the programming? Is it you for
Right.
being in the wrong setting? Is it the mechanic for doing something that the driver thinks they're in the right setting, but actually it doesn't work as intended, right? Who can a regular mechanic work on the car? Does it have to be the dealership in order to save yourself the liability? There's so many of these legal liability hurdles for self-driving cars in the hands of the individual consumer that I think the tech will be there long before they're ever legal, simply because they have to figure out all of these different things, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I see that point. Everything you said is fair, and everything you said I do agree with. I just think that it's funny that they're partnering with Waymo when they already have a lot of the technology. I mean, maybe you're right. It is more of just a portfolio builder, and it's more of a way for them to refine their own technology that's keeping cars on the road. For example, lane keep assist, um, radar guided cruise control, lidar, any of that stuff that's already sort of in their cars. It's potentially for that, but like to me, why are they even doing that when they already have teams surrounding this? And it's also been widely reported that like the stuff that Waymo's doing like isn't really like catching on. Like you said, it was cutting edge technology, and I'm like, Waymo's been around for like 10, 15 years now.
Oh, I remember
This
watching
is
a
not,
what is it? A Nova special when we were in
yeah.
high school about an autonomous off-road race.
Yeah. Like this is not new stuff. Like they've been doing this, and when I say they, it's the proverbial they, whether it be, a college team trying to do an endurance race around a track with a solar car, or, they as in Waymo. Like and anything in between. They, as in we as humans, have been fiddling with autonomous tech for decades now. And this is like it just seems to me that they are this almost seems like a PR push as opposed to anything else that is really going to come to fruition anytime soon. I don't really see uh this really like panning out in any way, shape, or form for Toyota. And not for nothing, what do most of these autonomous technologies go towards? A lot of them are geared towards EVs because of Tesla and their use of full self-driving, which is their term for their, driver
I thought
assist
they legally
systems,
weren't
which
allowed to
isn't
call
full
it that
self-driving
anymore.
either. No, well,
Well,
they still
I guess
do.
there's been
It's called
Doge has had a government culling, so like he can call it whatever the fuck he wants, but
exactly. Yeah, it's sort of like full self-driving, but it's also I think that they can say like FSD beta or full self-driving beta because it's not like a final thing as long as they put beta there. But again, that goes back to like, well, then you're just beta testing it with your own consumers, which is so stupid. And like it's the same thing. Like it's all real-time testing. Either way, long story short on my end is it's funny to me that you can have that sort of dichotomy within the same company. And I understand that like they make consumer cars, they make commuter cars. That's like what's going to sell and keep them afloat. Obviously, that's what everyone needs to buy and 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 everyone needs to sell to be a company and be consumers. I just find it funny that you need to have this gas engine in a sports car, but in the same breath, your company is going out and partnering with a well-known autonomous, again, autonomous doesn't exist, but self-driving company when you already have that technology in your cars. It just, I don't know, it was just weird to me.
I mean,
Either way.
I get it, and like I understand like where we're at as far as phases of technology and things of that nature, but like I honestly didn't read the article because this is one of those things that like that's cool, but like on the flip side, you found the article on something called Fuel Arc, a journal I've never heard of,
Yes.
right? So it's like
Yes.
I'll end it with this: like, what is we don't know what the partnership is really, right? Like, I I give Toyota the benefit of the doubt, and probably shouldn't, but to your point of, well, these guys have been doing the whole self-driving thing for a minute. Maybe we can look at their technology and say, hey, this will make the lane assist better, the
Right.
emergency braking better. Oh, hey, they're using roughly let's just say they're using the same sensor, but they have it done a slightly different way, which allows it to operate quick. Like all these little things, right? Because like, and not for nothing. Like I think I see it. Like again, I don't know the article, but I have to assume that Waymo does tech transfer and Toyota provides vehicles, which means Toyota's getting vehicle like for every one of us that are sitting here and going, self-driving, that's adorable. Oh, you have self-driving taxis in San Francisco that have been programmed to know this every square inch of that, be it small case when you consider the amount of mileage of roads in the United States,
Right.
and everything. I don't know. Like, I don't see where the Toyota loss is in this. And, like, not for nothing, if, like, Waymo is, like, you know, the only thing I can see that being a negative is Waymo starts using Toyotas, their software gets a little janky, and, begins starts calling itself Skynet. Uh, or
That
look,
would
or start,
that would be a large
or
problem.
starts looking at us as the battery to power the car.
Also, big problem. Also, Matrix. They should not watch that movie. Don't show Waymo cars the Matrix.
I mean, they're owned by Google, right? Like, it's
Yeah,
on the internet. Too late.
I know.
It's
But
look like I said, it is what it is. I don't see anything significant coming from this. Again, I don't see really self-driving cars ever really catching on in our children's lifetime. I see there being
okay.
I see there being an uptick in cities using them. I see it as a form of like sort of a trackless train kind of thing. Think like more things change, the more they stay the same, right? Think of like an autonomous taxi cab in New York City, like a trolley car back in like the day,
Mm-hmm.
right? But instead of tracks, this thing has whatever reflectors, whatever they need to um, uh, sort of keep it on the tracks, right? So like that sort of a thing. I see that happening, but as far as
Right.
but on the same vein, you wouldn't give a consumer a subway like a private subway train, um, and let them use it at their own discretion without, you know, I don't see autonomous cars because again, like the liability is something that just I do not think the legal system is ready for because there's all these tiny little things. Nicholas said it in chat, you know, well, we'll just hold the manufacturer responsible. That's great,
Right.
but guy changes wheels, knocks a sensor slightly out of whack that he didn't know he did. Who's at fault then? Guy decides to
Right.
guy goes through a car wash. Again, same thing happens. Who's responsible? Guy for getting his car wash, the manufacturer, the maker of the sensor. Like there's just so much little stuff that has to go into it that where it's like, yeah, it'd be great to just paint a blanket with of that, but it's, I mean, just liability in law is just insane. So,
Yeah.
um, like you said, it's a bit interesting to be saying, you know, oh, burn the dinosaurs and humans can't drive, right? Like, if you take these two things at their core, right? Let the human drive, burn the dinosaur, damn uh, you know, damn the electric vehicle, then self-driving cars, damn the, damn the driver, like you know, like no internal combustion, like all that, like there's a dichotomy there. But again, you don't get to be the biggest manufacturer of cars, auto manufacturer in the world by being even like a 10 trick pony. You do it by being 1,000,000,000 trick pony who, you know, and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Andrew, the battery, I think, I don't know. I don't know if this specifically, but I do know that China is actually one of the leaders in sodium ion technology. With think sodium as, hey, I live next to an ocean. Let's throw the water onto the thing. Oh, look, salt, sodium chloride. So like,
Yeah.
but like, uh,
Yeah.
which is one of those things where it's like, hey, that's an extremely clean way to figure out batteries, right? Because lithium mining, dirty as fuck. Um,
Yeah. Ocean water, very plentiful.
that that's how the Romans used to get salt for their food. Just saying.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
they were driving chariots that only had at most 2 literal horsepower.
Yes.
You know,
Um. Oh, go ahead.
and Sean, I think this is um, Sean for the second time, and Yonderson, welcome, my dude. Um, both mentioned the slate.
Hmm.
And I'll get to your point in just a second, Nicholas, because I think that. Anywho, let's just stick to it. Uh, what do you think of the slate?
So, I don't have an opinion on it because I literally have not even looked it up at all. I've heard of it, I've seen a picture of it, and that is it. I cannot put an opinion into the ether because I don't know anything about it.
Short version of the story is you can get a quite like think as bare bones a car as you could possibly think. So
Hmm.
we're going back to wind up windows. We have no
Okay.
speakers. We have no
Okay.
infotainment. Your infotainment, you know, the Tesla screen is literally all it is a holder for your phone.
Okay.
And then you can, and it's a pickup truck or pickup vehicle. I doubt it's very trucky, but it's an EV.
Vehicle with bed.
Yes. Think of the Ford Maverick, only not so mavericky.
The Ford Maverick with just nothing.
So it's very bare bones. It's going to cost less than or right around or just under $20,000, and it's modular. So
Okay.
you can add a screen if you want. You can add electric windows if you want. You can add a bigger battery if you want. You can make an SUV variant if
Okay.
you want. Like, so it's incredibly modular, but it's also you only it's like almost or the best way I could describe it is it's a vehicle, a personal vehicle a la carte, right? So you go to a fancy
Okay.
restaurant, you're like, ooh, I'll have the steak, I'll have the potatoes, I'll have the assorted greens, but get those freaking lima beans out of here, right? Like you have everything
Okay.
you want and nothing you don't. Which to me, whether they can actually pull it off or not is a completely different topic of conversation. Something we can push back to like when we've actually had it on the docket for conversation. Um,
A next week topic.
a next week topic. I'm just gonna have to risk you actually being here for it, though you've been quite reliable, I must add.
I was gonna say four straight. We're gonna go for five.
I might break the internet, and by
Um,
internet I mean
the
nothing.
idea
But like, just real
the
quick,
idea sounds great.
if they can pull it off, it suddenly makes the idea of an electric vehicle that doesn't have the best range in the world incredibly viable.
Okay.
Because oh look, it's $20,000, and everybody's like, oh, that's awesome. I don't drive 150 miles a day. What do you say about the range anxiety? Not that I'm a
Yeah.
champion for the electric
Well,
car, but you are a well, not you. We'll just go over this direction so it doesn't look like I'm going you. You are a dumbass. Um,
that was gonna be actually my argument there was we've had a sub $25,000 EV for the last 15 years that has not great range. It's called the Nissan Leaf. They've only sold about 115,000 of them over that time. So like this is all well and good, and I love the idea. I think it's very cool. If we can get something that's modular and very bare bones, and it's more of a pickup truck style, which will sell better than a Nissan Leaf, which looks like just a big lima bean, like you said. Um, I think it's a good step, or it's a step in the right direction in that sense. I still don't think it's going to sell because the range anxiety, like what's the range on it? It's got to be, I would imagine, between 100 and 175 miles. That if
in the base form,
from what we're talking.
it's 150. I don't know what the extended range battery does to it,
Okay.
but like, here's I think where it differs from the Leaf. Number one, I'm pretty confident the Leaf didn't start inexpensive. It became inexpensive, relatively speaking.
Yeah, it started in the 30s. I think it was like 35, 38.
And
But
it
with
garnered no
incentives, it was
interest
always below 30.
because it looked like the bastard love child of a Nissan Juke
That's that's correct. The design was
and a
awful.
Chupacabra. Um, so like
Correct.
the Slate is very simplistic, and I think a lot of people are lauding it for its simplistic design. Look, it has hype. It is modular, so in theory, you could drive it for a bit. Go, you know what? I'd like to go just for a little bit more range. Oh, bring it into the dealership, zip zang zoom. You now have a bigger battery, right? Or you can add features. You can do that, but like, look,
So,
I'm not a big
okay. So you're saying modular, as in like you buy the base, and then you're like, you know what? I want some speakers, and you go in and they add speakers at the dealership, or
or
they
you
go in
never.
and add the screen at the dealership.
You can buy the car bare bones and drive it till it dies like that. You can buy it with options, like the radio. Shit, most people are probably just going to use the phone feature because what do most people do? You get with the screen, you get in, you put in CarPlay.
Yep.
So if you all you need is a stereo system that has Bluetooth, bing, boom, there's your stereo. But you can get
Correct.
a screen if you want. If like, I know personally, I like having the screen, but whatever. So you can have these different things where you are sort of again ordering your car a la carte, right? It's almost taking the BMW model of hey, look how cheap this 3 Series is. Oh, you want floor mats? Oh, you want like sun visors or sun visors at
Yeah.
work or HVAC, that, like, you know what I mean? But it's almost like sitting here and it's
Yeah.
like telling you up front, here is an vehicle. At the bare minimum, it will do this.
And vehicle.
You, and then from there, it's up to you. And
Yeah.
again, because it's modular, because it's all designed for this stuff to be sort of plug and play, so it's not an ordeal for them to make it. Simplicity of design and manufacturing. In theory, you could, again, I want the bigger battery. You know what? I think I do want the screen. Oh, you know what? These wind-up windows are kind of a drag. You know, I don't know if you can mess around with the because you can get it in the truck form, SUV, and a convertible trim. I don't know if that's going to be modular.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. Okay.
But like the concept is there. The concept is literally testing that. Everybody sits here and says, I don't need all the bells and whistles. I just want a car that does X, Y, and Z. Well, now you have a vehicle that can do X, Y, and Z. Potentially, depending your use case. And that's why I think why I think it's interesting, because it kind of brings the car back in terms, like, you remember the cars where like Cadillac would build a chassis and then Greg Sonny and Co. would do the coach, like the bodywork.
Right.
You know? Take it easy, Steve.
Yeah, Pininfarina.
Yes, but like back in the day when you bought a car, you were buying a chassis, an engine, a transmission, and suspension, and then if you wanted the bodywork interior, you contracted a coach builder to do it.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Yeah.
You know, yes, Pininfarina is kind of like that, but it's more on a mass production than what it was back in the day.
Yeah, it's more of a design firm than a true coach builder.
You know, and like it's a pretty interesting concept that if it sticks, you might see, you know, they're the disruptor in my opinion. Like they're sort of just disrupting things, and then will they be the ones to champion this into the future, or will it be like, or will, I don't know, Kia look at that and go, huh, that's actually a great idea. I mean, it's mine now. Good luck, Slate. And will that kill Slate? And can even the big OEMs do that given their current methodology of manufacturing? I think it's interesting. I want to. It's on my let's see what this thing does radar. And then
it's in the dodgeball. Bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see how it works out for them. Scenario.
Hey, it worked out for average Joes.
That's right. On the Ocho. Catch up with chat for a second. I shall be back in 2 shakes.
I don't know. You might want to do a few more than that. You might get some staining. Alrighty. Steve is at. Yonderson goes, yeah, who needs a 14-inch LCD display on your face? I mean, the screens have gotten a bit out of hand. They're a little bit extreme and like to not but like having the option, kind of going back to that, having the option to do that is what makes this vehicle interesting to me. Having the option to be like, nah, I drive 20 miles round trip every day. I don't need a huge battery, and this thing's cheap motoring that it's like, oh, I would be the idiot who drives the Mustang because I love driving that thing so much. But like now someone gets that and say they get the fun car. Suddenly you don't need to have as much money to have a commuter and a fun vehicle, and suddenly interest perhaps spikes in fun vehicles. F the Juke, it's the ugliest POS since the Aztec. I mean, I would argue that the Aztec is better looking than the Juke. Just saying. I think the Juke is one of the worst ever pieces of automotive design. I shouldn't say worst ever. Right? There's been some truly offensive cars designed, but it's pretty hideous. Um, Sean goes, it'll have AC allegedly, and it has plastic body panels like Saturn. I mean, Saturn was a great idea that GM forgot. And what I mean by that is Saturn, around the time Saturn came out, GM could not make a good, reliable, small car to save their life. They couldn't. Uh, we can look fondly back at things like the Beretta and like those old Cavaliers and stuff. Those were not good cars, especially when you compared them to the imports of the day, specifically from Japan. So they were like, okay, we're struggling with this. What if we had a division that we didn't have any input with? We said, here are the things we can provide to you. You go ahead and do everything else. And do it affordable. And that was Saturn. Where GM lost its way, and this is across the board, was suddenly, instead of that, each brand having its sort of own identity and having some parts transfer, but the cars were sort of their own thing, suddenly you had a Chevy Cobalt, a Pontiac G5, a Saturn, not Skyview, Saturn Ion, that underneath the skin were all the exact same car. So now you're not only spending money to build the same version of the car 3 times, but you're not competing against yourself, so you're not getting as much sales for each one, so you're not getting the economy of scale of mass production. And then, wouldn't you know it, Saturn goes GM, or I'm sorry, Saturn, Pontiac, Oldsmobile. Now, I'm not saying GM needed to, didn't need to do that, but it still would be a kind of cool to have. It would be cool to have Pontiac specifically around. I'm actually doing a video on a Pontiac was poised to make a quote unquote new El Camino for 2010. And spoiler alert, they were no more in 2009. Yeah, again, I didn't read specifically on that. I mean, to be fair, you can fast charge it. I take anything that comes out of China with a little bit of grain of salt. Technically, without getting overly complicated, you could fast charge the hell out of a battery and cut charging times down massively. You also cut down the lifespan of said battery. Also, I mean, EVs haven't necessarily, for what the government wanted them to be, for what they were trying to sell us on, for what all of that, of what they could be and what the future was, all EV by 2035, that has been an object failure, and when we knew that. But as far as a thing, look back to 15 years ago, how many market share for electric vehicles, and look at market share now. They've carved out their niche. I don't think they're the future. I agree with you. I don't think you should put your eggs in one basket. I don't think you should be in the all EV camp or the all hydrogen fuel cell camp or the all synthetic fuel camp. I don't think you should be in. Why not have all 4? Tell them, go nuts. And then maybe down the road, we don't end up with an all EV future, but we end up with hybrids that are running on synthetic fuel, which is a renewable resource that is costs as much, if not maybe even a little more. And even costs a little less than the fuel we're using today. And you're carbon neutral. That's end goal achieved. And you're no longer dependent on fossil fuels you can pull out of the ground. And you're developing a fuel that you don't necessarily need to have in a specific location to pull the oil or what have you out of. So now you've become more flexible. Now countries can develop their own fuel if they want to. I don't know if it necessarily go that route. You'll probably have countries that would make a ton of it and export. But you get kind of what I'm saying. All of that stuff should be in consideration, and they should be pushing technology equally. Because again, to your point, electric cars haven't gone the way that they thought they would. Now, that being said, I think within the next 5, maybe 10 years, I think EVs are going to get a nice little shove in the backside with the implementation of things like solid state battery. Hell, even like I said, that sodium ion battery technology, it is, I think, at the last time I read about it, which is years ago, it was at like 60% the efficiency of lithium ion. But in theory, solid state battery tech, if you flush it out, can be twice as efficient as liquid state lithium. So in theory, you could have sodium ion solid state that's 20 to 30, whatever, as the technology evolves, more efficient than what we have now. And again, a resource that you don't need to destroy the land, not just digging it up, but literally just poison the land to get out. Sean, back on the Slate, goes, what I was reading, when you buy the Slate, it comes with the SUV conversion kit for you to install at your leisure. That's pretty damn cool, if I'm honest. Because the SUV version of it is kind of the version, quote unquote, I would get. I kind of dig it. But if it's that, indeed, that modular, I'm really interested to see what it goes. It's a complete rethink on how to buy a car. It's one of those things where it's like, hey, I can only afford the base of the base model. But as time goes on, I can upgrade. I think that's, honestly, I think that's a pretty cool concept of car design and car building. Yanderson goes, I hope they don't do like Ford did with the Maverick, and then 20 car before production and 35K after production. Well, that's always the thing when you hear about a price of a car, and does the car get buzz, and all of a sudden the car has, people are coming into dealerships and asking about it, or going to, Tesla stores, or whatever they're called, and demand is high, and dealers are like, I can make a buck. If you can that's the true enemy of affordable car. Whether it be an affordable sports car, an affordable hot hatch, an affordable fun off-roader, all of the affordable cars, like, we've all seen it. The Nissan Z, the Supra, Corvette Z06, Corvette Z01, all of these cars had massive markups on them. Hellcats weren't immune to this. And look, I am all for, if a business wants to make money, they can make money. And if you could sell something for a price, you could sell it for, but at what cost? And what is the overall goal of the parent company, or the company, in this case, the manufacturer of the vehicles? If this company is built around affordability and modularity, and the fact that you can get a brand new vehicle for $20,000, well, then the dealers need to damn well sure sell it for that. Otherwise, the whole project will be an abysmal failure. If the modularity, they charge $200 an hour in labor, apocalyptic failure. If they can be affordable and work and be as promised, there's a massive market for that. Now, maybe it's limited because of the EV nature of the vehicle, or maybe it just starts to get people thinking, well, I could buy this $20,000 used car for Junior, or I could buy this $20,000 car with no real creature comforts, distractions. Young drivers are dumb drivers. And in college or after college and stuff, if he wanted to add, he can at his own expense. But also there's a segment of the population that a $20,000 new car, or hell, even if they put some options on it and it's $30,000, that's still $16,000, $18,000 cheaper than the average purchase price of a car right now. That could be hugely beneficial. And if you need an example, if you need a case study on why catering to people who like affordable prices, like good prices, like kind of being as advertised. Take all the other stuff out of the equation, but look at Walmart. If you can have the Walmart of cars, you are going to make a fortune. I'm not saying the slight is that. Well, I'm saying if you can tap into that and not have greedy dealers slap $5,000 onto these things or random fees or random charges and just say, hey, if we stay the course, if we say this is the car, we continue to go down this path, as it grows in popularity, production will follow suit, and not necessarily today. What you could make in a markup today will make twice as much, 3 times as much, 5 times as much in 3-4 years down the road. Yeah, Costco's another example, Nicholas. And then back to your point about the autonomous cars that I totally didn't forget about creating lazy drivers. I think we've already done that with the current state of new drivers and how, again, at least in New Jersey, how laughable it is to get a license. And then the generation of kids, like, I'm not meaning to be that old man sitting on my front porch banging on my rocket chair. These kids today, burp, 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 burp. You know what I mean? I don't want to be that guy, but like, I also came from a generation, Greg is the same way, where our fathers took an active role in teaching us how to drive. I'm not saying that's not happening now. I'm saying, on average, it's happening a lot less. Meaning, in some cases, it's happening, and you even saw it with our generation. You saw the kids who parents were active in teaching them how to drive, and then you saw kids and who were like, all right, did the 6 hours, did the whole permit thing, passed the joke of an exam, and they're on the road. You could easily tell the difference. So, and like no driver has been more distracted in all of human history than they are right now. Full stop.
Accurate. Very accurate.
And
that's a good take.
You can have an experienced driver who knows, okay, these are conditions I need to pay attention. I'm not familiar with this area, so I need to pay attention. And I'm not even saying if you're driving down a road, you've driven down 1,000 times, that it's like, okay, well, I've been on this road 10 billion times. Let me just take a look at death. Right? You know, and to your point, I've always said, yeah, if you have to shift in a manual transmission, Nicholas, yeah, they're paying more attention because you have to understand I'm going up a hill. Things slow down. If I stay in 6th gear and it's a 20-mile-an-hour zone, I'm going to lug the car. I'm going to stall, like all this stuff. And you have to pay attention. But I also think if you limit distractions, or you limit, I don't know how you would necessarily pull that off, or make them more prepared or conscious of other things. Because no driving instructor is going to sit here and tell you, listen, Greg, you're going around this corner. It is cambered away from you, so you're not going to have as much grip in it, so pay attention. When it's raining, you're not going to your grip is going to be even less. Your braking distance stops. Like, kids are told this. They're not practically demonstrated it. We don't send a kid, go, okay, go 60 miles an hour, get to the cones, and stop on a dry piece of pavement. Okay. Now do it on this wet pavement. They don't see how easily the tires lose traction in wet or snow or any of this. They literally have to spend 6 hours the whole year, 6 hours to have a permit and pass a written exam that does nothing to teach you how to drive. It's more the traffic laws, which is valuable, but show of hands, how many of you know what the correct thing to do is when you get to a 4-way stop sign? That was on the written test.
I'm not even sure I remember.
Pretty sure it's you yield to the right, but it also it comes down to, you know, like take a number at the deli. I'm number 4. That person who, like, I waited for 3 to go, 2 went.
Yes.
Or what have you. Just train the drivers more, so they're more equipped to understand that that their concentration needs to be on there. And then what else was my next point? I have no idea. But Yeah, exactly, Sean. Traffic to the right goes first. Um,
Right.
but like, my whole point is that you take those 6 hours, you get the driving instructor to sign off on it. You pass your written exam, signed off by the whether you go to the DMV itself or you have a third party that's licensed to do the test. Then you go up and down a road, you drive a little bit, you do a U turn or a K turn, and then you parallel park. And that's it. You show you can indicate all this stuff. Even if you're in a BMW, um, you do all of that stuff, and now you have a license to be on the road. In New Jersey, you are provisional. There are time restrictions, passenger restrictions, etc. for a year. It's like, okay, I've learned everything. Now, a 19-year, on your 18th year birthday, you get your license at 17. On your 18th birthday, you now get a license that tells the world that you are legally allowed to do all of the same type of driving all of you in chat are, unless you have a CDL, but different story. All the stuff Greg can do. All the license is identical. Imagine that, like you go and you get like imagine if a trout stamp for fishing allowed you to go, swordfish fishing. They're completely different, both figuratively and literally, animals. Deep sea fishing is a lot different than sitting on the bank of your local river. Like, there's a lot more involved to it. Yes, the core concepts are the same, but you're not paying attention. That rod and reel that's quite expensive is going into the ocean. Or if you're bolted in, you're going into the ocean. So, like, that's where we just need to train better drivers. And I'll just leave it at that. Which brings me to Greg's next point. Sorry for the goofy transition, but
immediately dropped me under the bus.
I thought that. Listen, man, that is our shtick. If you haven't picked up on that by now,
oh, I know. No, I mean, I agree with everything you said, but to transition out of that conversation, we were talking earlier, and you're basically talking about like driver safety at this point of like knowing how to drive, right? One of the biggest companies that is, I think this goes into our next topic, is Volvo. They are all about driver safety, right? And one of the biggest things with Volvo is they've always been this champion of the driver at their own company's risk, right? Like they invented the seatbelt and then they gave the patent away because they wanted everyone else to be safe. That's like the biggest claim to fame with Volvo, right? The other thing is Volvo as a company has taken it unto itself to go full bore into the EV realm, saying that, safety isn't just about personal safety, it's about earth safety. And that's a noble thing. But it's also sort of set them back a lot in the sense that they don't, they're sort of floundering a bit. And they are not really doing great right now. So I guess I'll wait for Chad to come back to have more of this conversation. But they're still selling vehicles and they're still making money, but they're about to write off a massive loss in Q1 of this year. And I think a lot of it has to do with how they've pivoted their company. We'll wait for Chad to come back for that. But I think that I think part of that conversation is it's not just about. Sorry, I got to fiddle with my camera for a second because it's Something's not working right. Um, they're sort of claiming one thing, and it's not just that one thing that is leading to this downturn, essentially. Um, now, let me actually, sorry, hang on. I want to read this article on my phone, which is part of this, and which is it's like it gets into the why of like why they're doing this. Let me see, where is it? It's here. Da, da, da. So part of what they're doing, so Volvo Cars shares plunge on earnings fall, withdrawn guidance and major cost cutting drive. They are citing a couple of different things. They are saying that 1.8 billion um, cost-cutting measures as its operating profit fell sharply in the first 3 months of the year. Company has said its so-called cost and cash action plan would include reductions in investments and redundancies at its operations across the globe. Part of this article, which is from CNBC, by the way, the Volvo Car CEO calls for a U.S. trade deal about with the 25% tariffs. Companies in its earnings report, company said it would sharpen its U.S. product lineup to focus on growth and explore how it could better use its existing manufacturing footprint in the coming years in order to produce more cars where they are sold. Something that a lot of people don't understand about uh, supply chain is that just because it's made in that country doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be sold in that country. For example, the S60 is made in, I believe it's South Carolina. It's one of the Carolinas, South Carolina, North Carolina. I think it's South Carolina. And that S60 is shipped globally. Um, I believe they still make the S60 a little bit in Sweden too, but I have to relook it up. But that's it. Like it's just one or two plants for the entire globe. It's not just it's made in the US, it stays in the US. And that's sort of what they're saying with that statement. The other side of that is they're saying a little bit that tariffs had a lot to do with this. The tariffs hadn't gone into effect during this loss from them. And what they're not addressing is they've watered down their entire lineup to just be super EV focused. They've since like scaled back on that essentially a lot in Volvo, but all of this has been ramping up to them having these major losses because they haven't seen the writings on the wall of like people the people still are buying EVs, but it's plateauing like crazy. We've reached essentially peak of what the US market wants from EVs from a buyer standpoint. That's it. Full stop. They are not going to sell catastrophically more EVs unless something else happens with range and blah blah blah, like we all know. Part of this problem is that Volvo has gone, full bore into a direction that almost globally people are like, okay, that's enough. So that is sort of the biggest issue here is they're having a massive retraction in people wanting to buy their product because one, it's getting to be insanely expensive. And that's across the board, across all cars. It's not just the Volvo problem. It's just like the average price of a new car is like $48,000 now. That's not sustainable. People can't afford that, period. The other side of that is Volvo's a luxury brand, so it's more than that on the whole for almost all of their product. And these cars are things that, people don't necessarily want to buy. So Volvo now has to put out this statement of like, oh, we're, all of the corporate speak and jargon and blah, blah, blah. They kind of did it to themselves a little bit. And I get that they were trying to be this like pioneer of, we're gonna go all EV and blah, blah, blah. I've been saying since day one, that is not a good strategy when you still have EV in its infancy. It is not something that a car company as entrenched in the automotive automotive industry as Volvo is should be going full bore into and saying our whole lineup is going to be that. And now you're starting to see the repercussions of that because they are retracting that, because they're not going completely EV. Obviously, cost cutting and all of this was going to happen at some point. It's just happening now. So that's sort of like the biggest thing is Volvo as a company is sort of reeling a little bit because I think they've hit terminal velocity for what people want from their product in its current form. A Chad has returned.
Yep. Sorry. 4-3 Arizona, bottom 9, 2 outs. Mets have second and third. So I was watching that for a second. I was distracted.
That's okay.
I got to be honest, I didn't catch as much of what you were saying.
All good.
So I is the general premise that Volvo is not selling as many cars as they want to?
Pretty much, but also that they are essentially cutting costs by almost $2 billion because of market conditions and, in my opinion, their own failure to see the writing on the wall and what needed to be done, a couple of years ago. Of like, yeah, EVs are going to plateau and we can't have the entire world on EVs. That's just not a realistic thing.
Right. And I think we kind of touched on EV while you were away and stuff like that. And I think a lot of these companies were like, okay, well, Europe, America, they're going to make these laws that we have to do it. So I guess we kind of got to do it. And the smart big companies, you notice a lot of the big companies are weathering this a lot better. We're like, okay, we'll have that plan in place. We'll have the infrastructure. If we have to do it, we'll do it. Whereas Volvo, even in their heyday, and I think we're a long way away from that. I'm not saying they make bad cars. I'm not, pounding on my desk going, Volvo lost its soul and only made crap since they were bought by the Chinese. Rabble. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that even when Volvos were at their best, they were a niche brand.
Yes.
They weren't really. What is Volvo known for? They were known for safety. What does Volvo also do with their safety stuff? They allow anyone to use their patents. Because safety is not something to profit on, which is a very noble gesture, and they should be applauded for doing that, all of that sort of stuff. And ball game over. We can now close that. And so, like,
nice.
They had to, where, let's just say a Toyota can sit at the roulette table and they can play red, they can play a few numbers, they can play a few touching numbers, they can sort of diversify where they're at. Volvo had to go one way or the other. And the way and this is why I think government needs to stay out of this sort of stuff and let the market decide. EV, internal combustion, hybrid, whatever, that shouldn't be the thing. Carbon neutral should be the thing. Reducing emissions should be the thing. How XYZ manufacturer goes about it is their own business, but you shouldn't mandate one of the things. And this is one of the things we were talking about when you had stepped aside. And because small companies, they're not small, but like the medium-sized companies who don't have that big of a range of models, who don't have the financial might. I mean, let's face it, Volvo was their own thing. They were owned by the Ford Motor Company. Now they're owned by Geely Cars. Now, look at Saab, right? They had a similar ethos, and they're no longer with us.
Right. Good point.
So Volvo, and they were like, okay, we're definitely going out of business if these laws pass. We have to go that route. You know, they could have done it a little less. They could have gone 75% in, and then we're like, well, okay, this EV production plant now can pivot and do the hybridization of our hybrids or whatever you want to call it. And I think that hurts. But they didn't have, you know, we applaud Toyota for saying they weren't going to go fully electric. However, they had the financial might to say that. Right? They had the financial wherewithal
Right.
and the success, right? Toyota wasn't owned by Subaru and then sold to Mazda and then Toyota's like, all right, we're going to own some of this, some of that. But even less than like Volkswagen, who just bought everyone, they built it to be as successful as they are, right? They had the way to get around it. So Volvo, like, it sucks because like everyone here, we're all pretty passionate about that brand, one in varying degrees, you know, and it sucks to see them like this, but like they were in a spot where they couldn't afford to make a mistake, but they weren't put there willingly. Let's put it that way.
Right.
So the fact that they're cutting costs, they're cutting this, I honestly think that's exactly what Volvo should have done a long time ago. Instead of trying to make an S60 to compete with what is that? That would be like kind of like your 5 Series competitor, right? Or are they more around the same side?
Right.
3 Series.
The S60?
Yeah.
I'd say more 3 Series.
Right. And
the S80 was really their 5 Series.
And then you had the S90. And then you had the, you know, the various XCs and everything, where I think if they made a really good sedan, like look at perfect case study of it. A company with absolutely zero brand equity, brand loyalty ever. Genesis. Yes, they came from Hyundai, but they had nothing.
Yeah.
What did they launch? A car, a SUV. They made a really good car, a really good SUV, and then they started expanding the portfolio. If the cost cutting for Volvo is going down a similar path, let's just say their whole thing is we're only going to make hybrids. Totally okay with that. That is one of the paths you can take to carbon neutrality. That's fine. Make a really good car. Continue with what they do well, which is they make a really elegant, beautiful interior that feels better and in some ways more upscale than the more luxury brands like your Lexus, BMW, Audi, and stuff like that.
Yeah,
right?
That's
like
true.
They make an interior that isn't technically as luxurious as those brands, but it is a far nicer place to be. Right? Which is in my opinion, is more a better definition of luxury than having every bell and whistle, having an IMAX theater in your car, right? Like, you know, saying we only use leather from a specific breed of cow that only shits on Thursdays, and we only feed it the finest grass that is grown on alternating winters in Venezuela, right? Like, who gives a shit? Leather is leather. If you treat it the right way, 99% of the people will be able to figure out that this is the really, really nice cow. And hey, I ate this guy's cousin 3 days ago, right? So they do that. They figure out I think they have it in such a way where you can have the 4-cylinder engine NA, a 4-cylinder engine turbo, and leave it. If you want more power, have the hybridization. But this twin charging thing and I don't even know if they still do it. I apologize to you guys to check because you know more. But have it so they're only manufacturing an engine block. They're only manufacturing and casting for the head. You know, they have 2 different variations of camshaft, an NA and a boost camshaft. But say you make the springs, the valve, like all this stuff. Now you have engine options without having multiple if that makes any sort of sense. Will they go that route? I got to be honest, I don't have faith. I don't think Volvo has gone down a particularly with the whole Polestar brand. You know, I think Polestar I think they had it right with the Polestar hybrid. And if they had just
Hmm.
stayed that and then said, hey, you can get an EV, but it's not your only option, it would have done a lot better. And we've talked about that ad nauseum. But if they the actual Volvo brand, if they slim that down and focus on making two really good models, that's their path back. If they try to continue to make a quote unquote full range of cars, I don't see how they're going to end up being successful. Um, it's sad to say, but like, because the Volvo brand has a shit ton of value, right? I don't know if Mark is still here, but he bought the 40, the XC40, which is a great little
All
electric
right.
car.
Yep.
I think that thing would be an absolute sales phenomenon. If I don't know, do they make a hybrid version of that, or is the XC40 only electric? I don't know, but I'm sitting here thinking if you can make a small luxury crossover, and let's just say they don't even make a car, they make that and something more mid-size for say the somehow Greg managed to breed not once but twice family of four people who are admittedly short but still like space. It would absolutely tickle me pink as an aside if like one of your kids grows and is like 6'9", like it's
I would love that so much because then I could have someone reach off the top shelf for me. That'd be
you
great.
know, but like that's where I'll say with Volvo, like if your cost cutting is not in and of itself a bad thing, if they do it correctly in such a way, hooray tinnitus. Um, if they do it in such a way, it's a way for the company to come back, and then it's never going to happen. But if you want to continue to have Polestar to be sort of that extremely upscale, then have them develop a quote unquote bigger engine or a more powerful hybrid system or whatever you need to do, and have them just be to Volvo what Acura is to Honda, or to a
Right.
lesser extent Lexus to Toyota. Because as I commented on a Facebook post today, yes, some Lexuses are upscale Toyotas, even though sitting in them you'd never know. But show me the Toyota that is front engine, rear drive. I'll wait. That isn't a Supra,
Solid point.
a sedan, right?
Right, right. That's a solid point.
So that's like I said, that's a path forward. I don't know if that's the way they take. I didn't really, again, that article, I didn't have time to read it in depth. But like, again, they're not dead. If they're smart, they will survive and prosper. But I do think that's enough of that nonsense. Not that Volvo is nonsense, but like
Yeah.
self-driving
So I'm just
cars.
trying to read more of this article to see if there's anything else in it, and I can't. I don't see anything. I think we pretty much hit everything on that one, honestly.
Did I close that article? God damn it. Ford. So, now that we've spent an hour and 3/4 talking about, yeah, it's not all that. Yay, Toyota sports cars. We'll
That's true.
and I got to talk motorsports for a moment. So, always a good thing, even if our viewership disagrees.
That's true.
You know what I haven't mentioned as much as I usually do in tonight's show?
Racing?
No, I think I got a good
Your
chunk of that.
your disdain for me?
Nah, I don't disdain you. I would like you to foot some of the bill for the issues with my knees, because I feel like you're at minimum 23% responsible for. But
Probably
no,
right.
the Mustang, not my Mustang.
Oh, that's right. Because there is an interesting tidbit. Why don't you, since I was the one that did not find this, and you were like, why is this not on your list? You take it away and talk about this thing, and then I will chime in with opinions.
So the short version of this story is that there, as you can see on your screen, Ford starts testing prototypes for next Mustang Shelby GT500 by Car and Driver. Who I am
Shelby.
Now, before I really get into that, the general gist of it is that Ford has a new mule that they are now test driving around Dearborn, Michigan. Which, duh. The name I'll get to in a second. The more exciting thing is if you know Mustangs and you know where you're looking and you know high performance cars, things like that. There's a couple things going on here. Number one, and probably the most hilarious thing here is it has Dark Horse top like proportions and stuff, grill, hood vent, and then what looks to be Mach 1 lower part of the bumper, which is hilarious. But they had to modify the bumper because there's a cooler in that vent in front of the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
This is a performance vehicle thing number one. By the way, Car and Driver mentions none of this in their article. Number two.
Of course.
Number two. If we look, okay, it's got big brakes up front. My Mustang has big brakes up front. Regular GT. The Dark Horse has big brakes up front. The way you differentiate the special Mustangs from the, well, just really good Mustangs, the GTs, are the rear brakes, which are usually small. And that's done not because of cost saving or anything like that, because a lot of people who have Mustangs, it's an affordable way to go drag racing, and the smaller brakes fit drag racing wheels better. The same rear brakes, in effectively the same basic design, the way they're, the carriers, the way they're bolted to the car, has not changed since the new Edge. Just let that sink in for a second. But you can...
that's a long time.
If we open this image in a new tab and do some enhancement, you can see that this rear brake, it also looks like it's a multiple piece rotor. It's hard to tell in the picture, but like and I can't tell if that's part of the caliper or not. But you look back here in the rear, that brake rotor is filling up the wheel well pretty good. You know what models fill up the wheel well pretty good? Well, we'll just give it the due for a second. But the outgoing Shelby's in the S550.
I was just going to say, Shelby's.
So this says that this is a performance variant above. When you look at everything, and you look, like I said, the radiators in the front, the brakes, and in this shot, it's actually running on Shelby wheels, the carbon fiber wheels.
Yep.
Right?
Which, by the way, are awesome.
God, I want them. They're so unbelievable.
I know.
They're running on the
so
Michelin
cool.
rubber that all of the Shelbys ran on as well. Which I will say, Car and Driver, that's the thing they mentioned. It's like, not that you can't throw, not that it's a test mule that has the Shelby wheels. Imagine that. Shelby wheels have Shelby tires on it. And this could be a fucking EcoBoost. Like, it's not if you look at all the other stuff. But, so, so we're getting a high performance fast Mustang. And if you remember that leaked letter and stuff, it's getting an engine codenamed Legend, which will be the most powerful engine Ford has ever made and put into a production car. Let that sink in. We're at 820-ish in the current daddy of most powerful Mustang engines, the Mustang GTD. So this thing, I'm guessing, will be knocking on the door of about 900.
Which is
insane.
Bananas.
But again, it's not all that hard to believe, because if you had a S550 GT500, you're a pulley, a tune, and headers away from making not easy 900 horsepower. And as we know, because I've told you so many times, and if you haven't, I'm going to tell you again, the Predator block, the casting, can handle 3,000. The only things we don't know is like,
so it's going to be unstressed.
So the only thing the Roadrunner crank can handle 2500. But at any rate, all things we've talked about before. Things we don't know about this car are a couple of things. What's the transmission? If it's the next GT500, I don't know why I'm holding a lighter too, by the way. It's my fidget spinner for the moment.
You're prepping for a concert.
At any rate, Sean goes, the front and rear tires look to be the same width, and they're very wide. Maybe it's all-wheel drive. Possibly. Keep in mind the girth you can fit tire-wise on this platform. The S650 is an evolution of the S550. It's not a completely new chassis. And as someone who has done this, I can tell you it's very easy to fit 285s up front. You could even go as far as 295s. And you can fit 325s in the back. How do I know? It's currently on my current car, and it was on my old car. Who knows? Maybe the width of the tire contributed somehow to the battery catching fire in the old car. Who knows?
Possibly.
Andrew, I think, and now I'll get to the name because I think Andrew was starting to touch on some things. So,
yes,
they are the title, the next Shelby GT500. The Thing, a series of monster dark-based test mules running around Dearborn, sporting changes that hint at the impending arrival new Shelby GT5. Actually, you know what? F it. I'm going to do this. Fine. 8 times they mentioned Shelby in this article. One of two things is going on here. And this is where Car and Driver starts to lose me. Road and Track is guilty of this as well. And they're getting clickbaity. Now, it could be legit bait in the sense that they are industry insiders. They have contacts at Ford that I don't have yet.
Sure. Yet.
Soon. Chad, why is the next Mustang a 2,000 horsepower twin turbocharged monster? You shut your mouth and watch them sell. Just saying.
Yes.
I have a problem with them calling this a GT500. Yes, is that the best way as far as a communication device to tell you what to expect with this car from a performance standpoint? Yes. But if you watched the launch video of the new Shelby GT350, the supercharged one that Shelby American actually built, not Ford, you will understand that the Shelby license has lapsed, meaning Ford no longer has the license to the GT500, GT350, the Shelby name. That is not something Ford could just slap on any one of its cars. They have to have the license with Shelby to do it. And to my knowledge, I have not seen anything to the contrary. Again, Car and Driver might know. They might have said, yeah, we renewed that. Here comes the new GT500. But I feel like that would have been mentioned in the article. So, I do not think this is going to be the next GT500. Do I think it's going to have similar performance with a even more bonkers engine than the S550? Yes. Do I think it'll be called a Shelby? No. I personally believe, if you look at what Ford is actually trademarking, i.e. Andrew's point, Boss, I think what we are looking at is the Boss 429 or the Boss 302, depending on what's underneath the hood. So you have, and not to mention, if you take that Boss 302, right? Let's just say hypothetically, Boss 302 comes first, Boss 429 comes second. Think GT350, naturally aspirated track beast that Greg loves, even though I've tried to explain other things to him. And then you had the GT500, which was the boosted, ridiculously fast monster. The Boss 302 comes. That's your naturally aspirated one. That's your one that's going to make somewhere between 530 and 575 horsepower. Manual transmission, fun, all that. Personally, you could do the Boss 302. They're still making the Roadrunner crankshaft, by the way. That's the crankshaft that came in the S197 Boss 302. That is made out of unobtainium and mithril. That we know can handle
mithril.
That can handle a ton of horsepower. Or if you're not having a ton of horsepower, it can handle the stresses of, oh, I don't know, a lot of RPM. So you could have the Boss 302 with something that has a red line over 8 fill that GT350 void. And the Boss 429 follow suit. Now, this mule, I think, would be the 429. And again, it comes back to the fact that it has these coolers in the front grills, which tells me we're going to have an oil cooler, we're going to have all this sort of stuff. If not, these are actually the air-to-water coolers, or intercooler, or radiators, more specifically, for the within the valley actual intercooler for a supercharger. But it's just, it annoys the hell out of me that they're talking about Shelby and the GT500, and nobody wants to mention Shelby American's boss said this. It's not some random ass video that some YouTuber who was lucky enough to be there for the launch video said. This was someone actually from Shelby American who is in a position in power. So why do these journals, Car and Driver, Road and Track, all of these magazines were the things we would go to the store and look at when we were kids as the authority. And they used to be a proper journal, and they're now just slipping more and more and more into, let's just get the clicks. Like, look at what you are looking at right now. This is Car and Driver, one of the premier automotive publications. What do you see? Ad. Right? So, yeah. I'll wrap this up. Thanks for watching, Sean. We'll catch you in the next one.
See you, Sean.
And Nicholas as well. I'll end it with this. Like, am I excited for a new super high performance Mustang? Am I absolutely giddy at the fact that it could be a high revving version of the Coyote and then a boosted supercharged version of said Coyote? Abso-freaking-lutely. You all know how much I love this engine platform. I love seeing it showcased. I loved when they pushed the boundaries of it, and it's just like other manufacturers are like, oh, man, come on. Love it. Love it. I could go on about like wanting to see like, I don't know, a 5.4 liter Coyote variant that mimics closely the 5.4 liter race engine in the GT3 car that's going to race at Le Mans and won at the 24 Hours of Daytona. But I want to give Greg his time to talk here on that. I love that. I just wish these journals would act. Where's the harm? Where's the harm that Ford starts testing prototypes for what could be the next Mustang Shelby GT500? And then they talk about the license in a 3-sentence paragraph.
Yeah.
But they're actually serving the truth, not clicks. The floor is
right.
yours.
Well,
future owner of a Mach 1 that I get to build the engine on.
I mean, I'm very cool with that if it's someone else's money. I'm in. Because I don't have any money for that currently. So look, I mean, I agree with you. Like, the problem with journalism is that it's not journalism anymore. It's just how many clicks can we get to get the ads clicked to keep our company afloat, essentially, at least on the interwebs. Like, your points of the ads, like, I mean, I get it. There's ads all over the place. That's any website at this point. But the thing is, like, Ford starts testing prototypes for next Mustang Shelby GT500. It goes back to the Motor One article where I made the exact same point. Akio Toyota didn't say that sports cars must have internal combustion engines. He said, I prefer them to have that, and they should have that. Not that they must. That they did the same thing here. Like, it's like, this could be the next GT500, and then talk about it in the article. It's a very simple word choice, and quite frankly, that's actually more clickbaity than this anyway. Ford starts testing prototypes for next Mustang Shelby GT500. That's a very straightforward headline, and it's also not entirely true.
And even if it was completely true, it was just like, and all the headline had to be, right? Because everything has a picture of it. Is this the next GT500?
Yes. Right. Or how about GT500 test mule possibly spotted. There's a clickbait title. That's, it's the word possibly just being in there
What could
leads it to
possibly
believe
go
that,
wrong?
right, but it leads it to the conversation of it being in the
It
article.
invites
Like,
conversation.
oh, right, exactly. And it invites potential it invites the fact that it's not an absolute. This is an absolute as far as the headline goes. And it's not an absolute. This is not necessarily a truth. So it's just funny that they do this all of the time. And it's for clicks when in reality they don't know how to get clicks the proper way. And they also aren't doing it in a way where it makes sense and it's truthful. And it's not just this. It's like it's everything these days.
I just realized something. They made note. Let me just do this. They made point. They were shot in the same Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2Rs that came on the track pack in the previous generation. This one's, and it does mention that it's on Pirelli. But these are the Pirellis. So like Pirelli's, and they mentioned it comes on the Dark Horse. Like they did 99% of the journalism. Just like, it
just seems lazy.
Yes, it absolutely seems lazy to me, and it absolutely just strikes at a like, look, people are still going to view them as an authority, right? More so than they're going to view us, to be completely frank, right? Like, as much as I want to sit here and say I know more than car and driver, I simply don't. I mean, the closest any one of us is if you melded the brains of you and Hansen between the reviews and the news.
Yeah.
I'm just some idiot over here. It's like, ooh, you can put LS heads on a Ford 300 straight six. Continue. Or Dale Earnhardt drove a Corvette in the 24 hours of Daytona. Yes. I want to talk about that.
Yes.
And I'll just put a stop. I don't want to be negative. I don't want to seem like we're trying to shit on a big brand to try and quote unquote get our own clicks. I could care less. And
right.
Again, giving them the benefit of the doubt. If they have someone at Ford who has said, look, we have renewed the license agreement with Shelby. And literally that article is 100% true, or that headline is 100% true. That's fine. But at least acknowledge its existence, because you know what they were doing back in when that leaked UAW memo came out? They were already calling it the 500.
Yeah.
And the memo said GT500, and I believe it was in quotes. Almost like it was a placeholder. Like, so it's like you remember the, oh God, what was it? I think it was at the risk of taking too much time trying to remember this, I think the original prototypes for the return of the GT40, i.e. the supercharged one that came in like the mid 2000s, that was like called Project Daisy, right?
Oh, right.
And that was an internal name, but again, it was also the United Auto Workers and not Ford, so they could have just said, your next GT500, right? Like when the GT D came out, we're like, well, what does this do to the next 350, the next Shelbys, right? We literally had that conversation with Elliot. Right? This was before I knew that it was the license and how it worked and all this other sort of stuff. And everything. So it could have just been a way of describing the hotshot Mustang that isn't the GTD. The most powerful Mustang or whatever, right? Like, just be a way of saying it so that it's like, yeah, whatever it's called, the next, like, context and whatever. But I don't want to be all negative, so I will give them the benefit of the doubt. But if it comes out and they call it the Boss 429, you're gonna want to stick around on Car and Driver and Road and Tracks socials, because I am that petty. Section. I am that petty. 100%. But
I know.
But
I've seen your comments.
Oh man, my goal is to at some point be at the level of Donut Operator and how he is a Twitter bully.
Yes,
with facts. But on that note, I want to be positive. If this means we're getting a Boss 302 and a Boss 429, or a Boss 327, which are not, that would be 5.3, a Boss 337, 334, which would be the 5.4 of it, and a Boss 429 or Boss 900 or whatever they decide to call it. If it means we're getting something, a high performance Mustang, regardless of what it's called and what people report it as, that is absolutely a cause for celebration, because we were just talking about Mustang sales were down, but Mustang ain't going anywhere last week. Right. So this is good. And maybe if it's a Boss, Greg will be like, you know what? It doesn't have to be a Shelby, and that engine is actually better.
I mean, you never know. I could be swayed. But
one of these days, if I hit the lottery, that'll be those will be like the second and third project cars. Well, not so much project cars, but things I buy. It's like, all right, I'm going to get this car for me, which is going to be my build, and I'm going to do that. This car is going to be for Hanson, whatever the hell he wants. And then we're going to get Greg, I don't know, probably some station wagon with a European badge on it somewhere. And then the next car is going to be, Greg, here's this car, drive it. And then victory shall be mine. But
and I will drive it because it will be free.
No, then you will love it. And then you will come on our even better podcast, because I have thoughts if I ever won the lottery on that.
Yeah.
And go, hey, remember when none of you were watching?
Podcasting studio.
Chad was right.
Yes.
But on that note, I just want to thank everyone who's still watching, everyone who did watch. Appreciate everyone. But for this show, that's going to be a wrap. And I will see you next week. And we're fairly confident you will also get to see Greg next week.
5 in a row, baby. Let's go.
5 time.
Yep.
But
Dave Chappelle style.
Yeah.